Thank you, Madam Secretary and General. My staff recently had the opportunity to meet with members of the Ukraine's National Emergency Services, which is their equivalent of FEMA. And they mentioned that one of the tools that would be most helpful for them is the provision of remotely controlled mine detection and removal equipment, such as MV4s and NV10s, to decontaminate areas heavily mined with unexploded ordnances. There are currently only 2 of these machines in the Ukraine, despite multiple cities being littered with unexploded ordnances. Is UCOM working to ensure that more of this life-saving technology is being provided?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of it's being provided by allies, ma'am. A lot of it's being provided by other international organizations that are go beyond a single country. The whole question of demining and demilitarizing the landscape at the end of this is a big one. The Ukrainians have been doing it as they go along when they recapture territory, but it is a large task that's gonna have a lot to do with Ukraine's recovery from this.
Sorry, I didn't know if you.
No, I was just going to point exactly to the fact that this is actually a major focus of a number. There's a consortium of European countries contributing to that capability.
I'm glad to hear that, because one of the key takeaways we took was the number of people lost in the emergency services through these unexploded ordinances. At least 53 have been injured and 13 dead as of March 24th. And so I think doing all we can to assist in that endeavor would definitely be appreciated by them. Assistant Secretary Wallander, Russia has targeted several of our allies using irregular warfare tactics, such as strengthening separatist sentiments and planning coup attempts in nations like Montenegro and Moldova. Can you all talk about what UCOM is doing to help partner nations to thwart these efforts?
Well, I'll start from a whole of government approach. The United States has focused on combating corruption, improving transparency, rule of law, good governance, because one of the main vectors by which Russia is able to undermine allies, undermine countries in Europe, and try and influence their political leadership is through corruption, poor governance. And so that is a major focus of our efforts, as well as the European Union's efforts as well, to build that resilience against that kind of Russian influence.
General?
Ma'am, we also take a number of efforts in the information space. We work with our allies and our partners very carefully to identify misinformation and then rapidly to counter it. Critically, we help to train the governmental organs of our allies how to do that as well, so that they can go into the future. And then finally, we work with them on cyber defense quite a bit, so they maintain an awareness of some of the various ways that Russia can manipulate the public conversation on things. We do all of those under authorities from the Department of Defense.
Thank you. You anticipated my next question on disinformation and propaganda. In February of this year, Russia suspended its participation in New START, one of the few remaining nuclear arms control treaties that remain following the disastrous foreign policy of the previous administration in this area. Does this make nuclear weapons a more prescient threat should Russia seek to escalate its illegal war in Ukraine further?
Congressman, we share your concern that Russia is no longer implementing and in compliance with the New START treaty. The immediate loss is a loss of transparency and sharing data, which helps to create reassurance and stability, and is a main function of arms control. And it's something that we would want to prioritize in discussions with Russia about them coming back into compliance. At this point, they've shown no interest or willingness, and that is a matter of concern. It's less of a concern in the near term, because we have a pretty good understanding of Russian strategic nuclear forces and capabilities, but it becomes a greater concern over time, and it's something we're going to have to work on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.